Thank you so much for joining us on today's conversation. I've got Maggie Van Galen, and words are her gig. She's an award-winning children's book author and wordsmith, offering writing services for content for social media, marketing literature, blog posts, and website. She also writes journalism features, video scripting, and offers proofreading and editing services. Welcome, Maggie. Thank you so much for hopping on this conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kelly. This is awesome. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right in. So we met at a networking group a couple months ago.
Yeah, I
And
think
yeah, through our shared networking group, we're both part of NRG. And it's been a great program to be a part. I was glad to meet Maggie. We had a great conversation. She shared with me some of the insights that she's going to share today. And yeah, so we'll take it from there. Maggie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
sure. So there's kind of two parts of my world, if you will. So I am a children's book author. I have 5 books that I've published, and that are out there in the world. And that sort of falls under the passion side of my life. So it allows me to work with some charities, give back, and my kids are grown up now, so it still allows me to go in and hang out with little people and read to them and do fun things like that. But my day job is I'm a copywriter, and I basically weave words into compelling content for mostly small to medium-sized businesses. Um, my sweet spot seems to be people that have a lot to say but don't always say it very well. So if you think of doctors, lawyers, accountants, insurance, they've amassed this wealth of knowledge, but they often speak in their own language. So I'm able to sort of translate that into what the end user wants to hear. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. And you mentioned like lawyers, insurance companies, kind of like what I would call some of those more boring industries, but copywriting can make a huge difference. And so can like obviously your creative. And I think this is where our companies really mash up really nice is you take, you know, some of those more boring or I don't know how to say it any nicer, industries that people aren't that excited about. Like nobody wants to have to get a lawyer unless you're doing something happy. And insurance agencies, well, everyone needs insurance, but nobody really likes their insurance when they go through an accident or they have to have any of that. And so it's really interesting how solid creative content can really make a difference, but then also your words matter. Tell us why, like, why do your words matter, especially on like those accounts that are a little bit more challenging? Like, I can talk about like how content is important. There's silly stuff people can do, but people want to read and have those substances. So tell us a little bit more about why the words matter.
Yeah, well, I think the words work really well with the other content, right? So the words should reflect the customer's brand. It should set the words should have the tone of the brand. If, I have a client, for example, who's a lawyer, but he doesn't want to be that perceived notion of what somebody says, oh, I have to call my lawyer, and they picture somebody in a suit and
Yeah.
tie with a briefcase and being billed, $500 a minute to talk to them, right? He's like, I don't want to be that. I want to be like your confidant, your friend,
Yeah.
I'm silly sometimes. So the words help the brand become authentic, which is, it's kind of a keyword in today's, or buzzword, if you will, in today's marketing world. Like everybody should show authenticity, but the words really help you do that, because how you say something and what you say reflects who you are. Just the
Hmm.
way that we speak, it's the same concept, right? And I think words are sort of how do you say it? Almost like the proof in the pudding. So you have a graphic that says something, but then the words basically back it up. So, it sort of gives you that authority, and the way that you say it is also helping you with your authority. And that's what you should be in your industry, no matter, even if you're in really exciting industries, like you're doing photography or videography or something cool.
Mhm.
Like you should be the expert in your field, and that's how
Mhm.
you should be coming across. So, and I think words can help you do that.
Absolutely. And I think there's stories to tell too, in that the storytelling feature can be and I've seen some of your work, and you do a good job at that. And you are an author and a children's storybook writer as well. So you have that story aspect, and as appropriate, if that fits their brand and their vibe, like obviously storytelling is something that we can all relate to, even regardless of industry. If it's a story about something that happened and how insurance helps somebody, those are stories that we can really connect in that aspect. So yeah, like I think, yeah, your words do matter. It backs up what you're talk what the graphic or the photo or the reel that some that a content creator creates, you're able to kind of elaborate on it more. I think that's great. That's a great perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think also just to sort of play off what you just said, um, no matter where the words are, right? So whether they're on your website, they're in a blog post, they're coming across to the newsletter, the end user is the person that matters, right? The person receiving that content is the person that
Mhm.
matters. So they need to understand what you're saying. They need to engage. If it's social media, they have seconds to engage, right? There's the
Mhm.
amount of time that they have. Um, so I think actually being a children's book author helps with that because it is a story, um, but it also forces you to write. I when I do training classes, and I mean no offense to anybody, but I always say write as if you're writing to your, fifth grade child. Not because your audience is not intelligent, but because it forces you to write concisely and, very specific to your message. So write it like, keep it simple.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's really good advice to keep it simple. Sometimes we start using elaborate sentences and words, and it doesn't need to be that way. We're in a fast-moving society, and things are people are moving fast. And like you mentioned, like even on social media, but also even on a website. Like if you can capture their attention for more than 3 seconds, you're winning. So if people are going to go through, and whether you have like a creative picture or creative words, what you say in those bold headlines on websites is really important and really matters. I was listening to a podcast this morning that was talking about how it was specifically talking about like your bio and how your bio on YouTube is really important, or like your title on your YouTube um you know video is really important, and how that can really draw people in. And some of the things that they had talked about was starting with a question, like what is the pain point of the person that you're trying to catch the attention of. You can ask it in a question. And they gave some examples, which were really helpful to kind of like reframe it. So that's a really good advice. um
I always look at it like if you think about it's true today, but more so when you used to have like a physical newspaper or a magazine that you were flipping through. You first look at the headline. And if the headline grabs you, you'll read the first sentence. And if the first sentence continues to grab you, you'll read like the full paragraph,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But it's a funnel. So like if you miss that headline or you miss that first opening section, you've lost your audience,
Hmm.
right? And that's the same with whatever you're writing today.
Exactly. Exactly. You want to grab them in the social media industry. We always say we want to stop the scroll. And essentially that's what you're doing with the words. Even if
Yes.
we don't rely on newspapers as much as we used to, but even like think about like our headlines in the news,
Yep.
what we want to click on to read more. It really does matter for
Yes.
sure. What
Yeah.
are some, so on that, what are some trends that you're seeing in 2025 that can make some great copy for drawing those people in?
So I think, I mean, and I mentioned it before, but being authentic is has
Mhm.
been a trend and continues to be one because I think it's important for people to show who they are and to be real with who they are. I mean, I think that's just key. There's nothing worse than, you know, buying a product or engaging with a person or, whatever, and then you actually get the product and it's not anything like what you thought it would be. So I think authentic is going to continue to be a trend, if you will. Um, and then I think that, and you can probably speak better this than I can, but video seems to be making its way back into the world of like
Mhm.
social media and posting. And what I would say to that is, whether you hire somebody to do it or you do it yourself, just write a script. You don't have to read it word for word, but like know what you want to say and like have it in front of you, practice it so that it makes sense and it looks more professional. It's still authentic because it's what you want to say, right?
Right.
Um, but there's nothing wrong with like writing it down and taking a little time. If you're going to make the effort to make a video and put it up, and by video, I don't mean I saw your interview with Billy Salmons for Warm Marketing.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be this elaborate process, right? It can
Right.
be with your phone, you're taking a video, you're walking around doing whatever. But like think about it, think it through just as you would writing content. So that would be
Mhm.
my suggestion. Um, and then, of course, AI is making a big play and has been um, in, I don't know if you'd call that a trend or a tool, um, but I think an AI is a tool. I mean, we
Yeah.
can talk about that more if you'd like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
um, I think when it first started to sort of inch into my industry of writing. I mean, AI's been around for a while, but really getting into sort of the mainstream industry. I was at a networking group and some photographer said, "Oh my God, AI is the best thing since sliced bread." I just plug in this thing and it pops out like, a month's worth of copy for me. And I thought,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, like my job is gone. Like what am I?"
Right.
So my plan was I could either, bury my head in the sand and pretend it wasn't there and hope it went away, or I could learn about it. So I chose the latter. And what I found is that it's a tool. It's a great tool. It should not be a replacement for copywriting. Even if you're not hiring a copywriter and you use AI, I implore your listeners to go back and edit, right? Because there's a couple things. AI is incredibly repetitive. So
Mhm.
if you plug in a prompt like, write me a Facebook post about, I don't know, the latest insurance trends, it will give you a really good prompt, right? It's a starting point. So,
Right.
make sure you're reviewing it, double checking it, because it's not always right. Just because
Mhm.
it's on the internet doesn't mean it's always right. Um, AI is a huge fan of adverbs. They love to make everything fluffy and,
Yes.
sound
I've
amazing.
noticed that. Like,
Um, it's
yes.
not a huge fan of punctuation. So
Mhm.
like just like really go in and edit and review and make sure it has your tone
Mhm.
because it's not you speaking, right? So don't just
Exactly.
take what it says and, you know,
Yeah, exactly. And I think you hit on something there too that like like kind of the initial fear of losing your job. It's almost like people are devaluing what you bring. And what you bring is the client's tone, voice for that specific industry. There's a tone and a voice that AI has. And one of the conversations you and I had was you can spot it out of anything. Like it is so easy to spot when someone's using AI because it lacks that authenticity. And honestly, this has been a conversation that we've been having kind of across the board in the marketing industry. Is just like, when you go on social media and you see an AI video, an AI picture, AI caption, it starts it starts getting really, like you just said, use your word, repetitive. And so when people have authentic things that they're saying and they have an
Hands
authentic
out.
caption, it just stands out. It just goes
Right.
like, so really, if you want your brand to stand out in this industry, um, totally 100% relying on ChatGPT to produce those captions for you really isn't going to serve your business or your brand very well. And like you said, you can use it as a tool, use it as a launching pad. The blinking cursor of death is a real thing. And I've been there. I've written a lot in my time as a human. And I used to write stories and blogs. I even had a blog at one point. And like it's real. Sometimes you get that writer's block, and that's where like those tools can come in. So have you used AI as like kind of like an AI sort of like as a writer's block creativity starter?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great if you, there's a couple different, I mean, AI that's a great place for it, right? So, like, what are the top questions that somebody has if you're planning and you're doing your estate planning? And AI will give you like 5 questions. From those
Mm,
questions, I can be like, okay, so what does my client do to answer those questions?
yeah.
Right. And then it just starts getting your brain sort of flowing. Um, you can, I just learned this the other day. You can, if you type in that question or type in your industry in like a Google search. So if you say estate planning attorney, if you scroll all the way down, there's a section in Google that says, what else are my customers asking? So you can look at those and maybe,
Mm,
expand on that.
yeah.
Um, as a like old school writer for writer's block, I there's a lot of other things that I would do. So I often like turn it off and walk away, go for a walk, be inspired by nature.
Hmm.
Um, we in my writers group, we do writing prompts. So I have a like 10-page document of just unfinished sentences that you can pick, and you just set your timer
Ooh.
to like 5 minutes. And it has nothing, it doesn't have to do anything to do with your business. It's just to get the creative juices flowing. So it could be like, I don't know, the witch looked into the mirror and saw dot, dot, dot. And then you
Mhm.
just write on that. And I prefer pen and pencil because um, there's no spell checker, there's no like Grammarly
Yeah.
popping up yelling at you that you're writing it the wrong way or whatever happens. Um, but it just helps to get those creative juices bubbling. Um, so yeah, those are some of my tricks for.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I love the idea about I used to do that and get some of my best ideas in the morning when I would walk.
Yep.
I haven't walked in the morning for a couple years, but that I just I would have my phone with me. I would listen to nothing. Sometimes I would listen to music, but listening to like nature, the cars, the birds. And when ideas would come, I would just have my phone on me on a note section and I would just write down notes. I wouldn't look at like grammar. I would just like have those ideas that would just pop in and I would just write notes as I was walking. And it's amazing like how much just getting outside can really trigger that creative juices in a natural way. I mean, like obviously, if you're on a deadline, like I could see, using AI in a different capacity, but also practicing using those muscles of creativity that sometimes sometimes can get lost. Um, we were talking on one of our other podcasts about how um, it's a muscle. Like we have to work out in a gym now. Like we should be doing things to exercise our creativity and not relying on tools all the time
Yeah.
and using them as a tool, not as a crutch.
Yeah.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
And I think I did a blog post on finding inspiration for your writing. And it started with I was taking a walk with my dog. I have a 125-pound Bernese Mountain Dog. So it's more like he walks me, but that's a different podcast for a different day. Um, and it was in the winter, and there was one of these little it was a plant that has sort of a cone shape, and it was filled with snow. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. It's like nature's waffle cone. So I took a picture of it, and that image sort of stuck in my head all day. And I was like, it ended up being a blog post, right? So, it, and from there, and I always tell people too, like, and I do this for some of my clients, I'm like, start with something big, like a blog post, and then you break it out into smaller bits for your newsletter or your social media or,
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. And that was perfect because it lent itself to like 4 or 5 different pieces of content for me. And I was like, awesome.
That
Check.
is awesome. Yes, that's the best way to do it is when it starts flowing, being able to repurpose some of it. We do that a lot in our industry. Obviously, you're a piece of the pie for the marketing as a whole.
Mhm.
We have piece of the pie, which is the SEO, the website, the social media, and the email marketing. It's another piece of the huge industry called marketing. And yeah, like it's interesting. Repurposing is really important. I think sometimes people think that they have to reinvent the wheel every single time they sit down at the computer, whether they're building a new landing page or they're writing an email newsletter or they're doing a social media post. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. You can take inspiration that you've had for, like you said, like a blog post and repurpose it in a million different ways. Create a script, do a quick interview or do a quick reel or something like that. There's a lot of ways to reuse content for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's just I don't know, like you get the ideas. See, and that could be a way if you're stuck on like not sure how to use different ideas, you could use AI as a tool and be like, "Hey, give me 12 ways that I can repurpose my content." That could be like a prompt that you put into Chat GPT that you can actually then take that and apply it to the work that you've already done. So there
Yep.
might be some ways that you're not even thinking about.
Right. Yeah, the other thing I do like Chat GPT for is if I see like an article, a really long article that I like or that I find interesting or that's interesting for one of my clients, I can dump the whole article in Chat GPT and say, give me a summary of this article.
Ooh.
Especially if it's for one of my clients. And I mean, I'm not a lawyer, doctor, insurance professional, I'm not one of those people. So I'm not creating content from nowhere, right? I don't have this whole like bucket of information in my head. So especially if it's for one of my clients where the the article itself may be more technical or more detailed than I naturally understand, if I can take that article and say, okay, boil this down for me, um, and give me a summary, then that I can work with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because we have the same issue, not I don't want to say issue, challenge. I'll say a little bit of a challenge. We're experts in our fields.
Right.
And again, that bigger piece of like marketing. We didn't go to law school. We aren't certified in insurance. And so these are things that we're having to learn for on behalf of our clients. Um, and it makes us little mini experts that we can talk about it, but yeah, the learning curve sometimes can be a little high. I don't want to be, and I'm sure you have this issue too, like I don't want to be 6 months down the road still making the same mistakes about their industry. I want to make sure that I can at least talk about it.
Right.
So that's a great idea, plugging it into ChatGPT to get kind of a summary. And even something else that you said, you could say put it on a fifth grade level, tying back to
Yeah.
something you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
But really like making sure that you understand, you can speak to it and things like that.
I
Um,
do recommend though, like there are the classes I took on ChatGPT, like you don't have to go back to college to do it, right? There's people out there that offer like I took learning ChatGPT for small businesses. And it was great. It was like a 3 week class, I think, 4 week class, 1 hour a day or 1 hour each week.
Mhm.
And we learned like the very basics, and then you can go on and do the next level. So it doesn't have to be a massive investment. Um, and it doesn't have to be like a huge time sink. So you can just, learn some of the, I mean, you can go and learn it yourself if you want to, but I prefer people that know what they're talking about to teach me things that I have no idea about.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So kind of shifting a little bit to people who are interested in hiring a copywriter. So we've had copywriters on our team since the very beginning. Like I said, I write. My husband is a good writer, but these are things that we thought that, you know what, we could pass off to someone else. This is something that we don't really need to be doing as we're growing our business. We're scaling in 2020. Every year we always say we're scaling. We are. And every year we've grown year over year. And part of that is hiring the right people around you, and making sure that you hire the experts. Some of the things that we look for, obviously, we want to read what they've written, make sure that there's not obvious issues with their writing, like if they make grammar mistakes. Like I'm going to spot that. Our users may or may not spot that, but I don't want to hire a copywriter that makes grammatical or spelling errors. That kind of defeats the purpose. Um, yeah. So what are some, so like when we're looking for a copywriter to hire, obviously look at their work. Look at the work they've done for their clients, look at the work that they've done creatively. When you and I met, you showed me your book, which I thought was just, I mean, I didn't actually like read your book, but you're showing me what you did and your process for that. Like those are things that like we look for as like hiring people for doing the copywriting. And also like how quickly they grab on, and what their process is. I know when you and I were talking, you took me through like a whole discovery kind of process where we had a form and all that other stuff. And so it was really important to make you thought of it as important. You took the lead on making sure you really understood the client. And those are things that, as if you're hiring a copywriter, I would encourage you to look for some of those green flags in who you're hiring. Um, to make sure you hire the right person for your business. What are some mistakes that you see small businesses making when they either hire a copywriter or they're trying to do the copy themselves? What are some common mistakes that you see people making?
Yeah, first of all, I love the concept of a green flag versus a red flag. Like, that's awesome.
Yes.
Um, I think a couple things. One mistake is that they don't hire a copywriter at all for a bigger project. So a, a website is, and I hope you would agree, is like the front door to your business, right?
Yes.
So I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Like if you, get the interest of somebody that you don't know, that knows nothing about you, and you say, come learn more, and they click and they get to your website and it looks beautiful, but the messaging is wrong or there's typos or whatever the case may be, it sends the wrong message, right? It's like you
Mhm.
think you're walking into this beautifully designed store and you walk in and it's a mess and there's no inventory and there's nothing there. You're disappointed, right? As
Right.
the end user.
Yep.
Um, so I'm not suggesting that you have to hire a copywriter for everything you do as a small business, but for some of those big, really important milestone projects, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth the
Mhm.
investment. Um, the other, um, I've lost my train of thought now. Um, the other thing I think people make problems with, or make not make problems with, I think that a mistake that's made is, and I think this comes from the writer's perspective sometimes too. I've met a lot of writers that say, "Oh, I'll write anything."
Mhm.
I would say that's definitely a flag that you want to look out for because writers, yeah, I speak confidently about this. Not every writer should write everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And there are
do.
whole
Yeah.
industries, like
Mhm.
public relations is a great example, right? Like I'm not a PR writer.
Mhm.
That's a whole industry. It's very
Yes.
specific. There's there's certain rules and like guidelines that you should be following if you're writing PR.
Mhm.
Ghostwriting is another thing that the ultimate term for ghostwriting is if Kelly, you came to me and said, I want you to write my life story, and I'm your ghostwriter. So that
Mhm.
means that I'm going to write your story and put it into a book and it's going to go out into the world under your name. I don't do that. There are
Mhm.
people, there's a whole industry of
Yep.
ghostwriters, right? Grant writing is another thing. Like that's very
Oh,
specific,
yeah.
right? So
Yes. Yes.
I think just be cautious if you're talking to a copywriter and they say, "Oh, I can do anything."
Hmm.
That's not always it. Well, it shouldn't be the case, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not all, brain
We
surgeons,
we can't do everything. Yeah, that's the thing is we
right?
can't do everything. I think that's a misconception, and I'm really glad that you hit on that about copywriting is that you can't do everything. You can't write about everything. It's not a one size fits all. And that's the same thing I think for um in marketing is such a huge world. Like there's a lot that we don't do. Like one of the things that we don't do is we don't do pay-per-click ads, but we have people in our network and on our team that can do those things. And so I'm not going to pretend or try to go learn how to do pay-per-click ads. I'm going to bring a person in that can do that or refer out to people who can do that because I don't want that client to not get my best.
Right.
Like I want to be the best, and like you do, you want to be the best at what you can do.
Right.
And like I think sometimes people don't apply it to our industry fully or don't fully understand. So there's an educational piece that has to kind of go there. It's kind of like what you're talking about with the doctor. Like, and not
Yeah.
everyone's a brain surgeon, but you wouldn't go up to like my dentist is a doctor. Like I wouldn't go up to my dentist and be like, hey, I'm having this weird like mole thing. Can you check it out and see if it's cancer? Like I'm not going to do that. Like
Right.
my doctor would be like, my dentist would be like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah. Right.
like, I don't
Right.
know anything about that. I would go to a dermatologist.
Well, I
And
think
so,
on the flip side of that, I think it's also a disservice to us, right? Because, like you say, you could go out and learn how to do this pay per click ad, but the
mhm,
amount of time that it takes you to learn how to do that multiplied by your hourly rate and then what you're getting paid by the client. I mean, you know, I
yeah.
would rather say, you know what, I know somebody that is a fantastic ghostwriter and I'm going to introduce you to them. That takes me
Mhm,
5 minutes,
mhm.
right? And I know that you're going to be happy, they're going to be happy, the end product is going to be great, and you're both going to think highly of me because I've sent you to this great person that can do great things, right? So I just think it's a you do a disservice to yourself if you say you can do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't learn. And the industry is changing so fast. Just all industries, you
Right.
take brain surgery again. I'm sure that industry has changed. I don't know anything about the industry, but I'm sure it's changed a lot. Techniques have changed, which applies to both of our industries, like marketing as a whole, and then also copywriting more specifically. Things
Yeah.
change. We can't possibly keep up, but there are people who do different things that we can pull on. I think that's part of like one of the things that we really love, and I get the sense from you as well, is collaboration and making sure we want the best for our clients. So just that collaborative approach is is a really helpful attitude to go into things because then it's not like, oh, well, I have to be the best. I have to be the king of the mountain. I can be, I can let someone else have the spotlight. And that's okay. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. And like you said,
Absolutely.
I think it comes back to your business too when you refer out. You can go like just that honesty of like, hey, this isn't my thing. We had somebody ask us the other day if we worked on a certain type of web platform, and I'm like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, we don't. I've never used that platform. We use these platforms instead. Here's why. I'm not asking you to move. If you want to stay with that platform, that is fine. I said, I would love to hear who you hire because I don't know anyone who works on that platform. So I think it's just being genuinely ourselves and honest with our clients.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that you would like to share with our audience that could be like a great, like maybe piece of advice or a takeaway that small businesses can implement right away?
Ooh.
I put you on
Um,
the spot, didn't I?
I know, right?
All right,
Um,
let's hone this down. What's an easy way for a small business to find out if their copy is working or not? And then they should call you.
well, I think, and I'm not the expert in analytics, but I think that you can easily see like how many clicks you're getting on different things without fully needing to understand it. Like if I had hired Gold Bear Media, you could tell me all of this stuff,
Mhm.
right? If you hire Maggie, I would refer you to Kelly, um but that's a good way. Like, are you getting engagement on your blog posts, your social media posts? Um, and if you're not, then, you don't, like for me, you don't have to hire me to write all your social media. You can hire me to edit your blog post, and I will edit it with, you know, like what I do for Gold Bear Media, right? So
Mhm.
you guys, I'm not an SEO expert, but you
Right.
guys give me the SEO words and I add them into the content. And then after a month, we review and see what's getting the best pull, right? I'm not reviewing, you guys are reviewing, but you can look at that yourself. And
Exactly.
I think you have to look at the numbers, and just see what's working and what's not. I know, like when you just as simple as like using the meta scheduler with Facebook and Instagram, you can do like a test. So you can do a post one way and another way
Mhm.
and see what works better. Try a
Yeah.
completely AI generated post and then take that same post and write it in your own language and see which one gets better results.
I love that. Like two things I want to highlight and emphasize that you just said. Number one, look at the metrics, and number two, testing. Those are two things that I feel like I say sometimes till I'm blue in the face because those two things, like when I walk and I've since the very dawn of my career, it has been like, my boss or whoever I'm working with, I feel like blank. And I just cringe when I hear that. Like, yes, there are some gut feelings, but you're talking about something that needs numbers. So like, I feel like our content's not hitting, this audience. Well, let's look at the metrics. But I feel like it's not hitting, I can tell by the likes and stuff. I'm like, look, the metrics are they never lie. They never
Right.
lie. So our feelings, like we can feel one way. And what's nice about that too is sometimes personally, I feel a certain way. Like I'm like, man, it just seems like these posts are not resonating. And I go back to the metrics and I'm like, wow, we are still steadily going up in our metric that we're measuring for this particular thing. And so yeah, I think those two things are great indicators. And I agree 1,000,000% that testing and look at the metrics. And they make it really
Yeah.
easy for you on Meta to look at that. Or even you can try A/B landing pages too. So that's another way to use that as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I think you just have to try different things, but you
Mhm.
have to not just throw them out there and see if they stick. You have to
Right.
try
Right.
them systematically. So that's my
Exactly.
that's my big advice for the day.
Yes, no, it's excellent advice. I love how it really mirrors a lot of what we say at Gold Bear Media too. So I appreciate that. Um, yeah, thank you so much for our conversation here. This was really great. I appreciate your time. And if you need a copywriter, please be sure to check out Maggie on LinkedIn. I'll put your link down in the caption here. And yeah, she's fantastic and she's fun to work with and she's super nice as well, which is great. So,
Thank you.
all right. Well, thanks so much. All
You're
right.
welcome. Thank you. Thanks for
Mhm.
having me.